Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of light and secret knowledge wherever you may be, you are listening to Points of Light Radio, the podcast dedicated to taking you past the apron and behind the closed doors of lodges everywhere. And here is your host, Stan Miller.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Shalom, assalamu alaikum, nastana. It's wonderful to be back here with you on Points of Light Radio and continuing our fellowship as we go along here. I'm really looking forward to this particular segment of Points of Light Radio because we're going to be following up on the September 30th segment where I investigated two defunct fraternal organizations. I want to tell you that that particular segment was so well received. I've decided to continue that journey by shedding light on two more, right? And I'm not going to tell you what they are. I want you to continue watching. It's going to be interesting, right? You will hear me put forward some commentary on my own on these organizations. You can see I'm kind of excited here, right? But part of what we're going to try to do here is not just shed light on these ideas, but we're going to talk about what is fraternalism, right? And the two organizations we're going to investigate here, they were doing some of the right things here, right? Now they did make some obvious mistakes, right? And I'll let you have your commentary on those as well. But I really can't wait to get started here. I really can. I really want to get going here. You can see I'm kind of excited. So before we take our journey today, as always, I want to ask you, are you still thirsty for knowledge? Are you still searching for the light? Well, then you just trim your lamp and follow me. The first organization that we're going to try to shed some light on today is the Ancient Order of United Workmen. Have you ever heard of them? There's their crest right there. Now, the Ancient Order of United Workmen was a fraternal organization in the United States and Canada. They provided mutual social and financial support, and they were formed in 1868. Kind of interesting here again, like I keep saying, that golden age it seemed to be when lodges were being formed between 1850 and 1900, right? You can't help but notice that, right? The Ancient Order of the United Workmen were the first of all the fraternal benefit societies, and they would offer insurance as well as sickness, accident, death, and burial policies. The order was founded by a gentleman named John Jordan Upchurch. And the name Workman was chosen as part of the new order's name because its purpose was to serve and attract men in the mechanical trades. However, only 2 years after the Ancient Order of United Workmen was formed, the order broadened its membership requirements to permit other occupations as well. So much like Freemasonry, right, begin to admit members from outside of the stonemason trades, or the free gardeners begin to admit members who weren't in the gardening, career path. The Ancient Order of United Workmen broadened their membership, only they did it much faster, shall we say, right, than those other orders I mentioned. Mr. Upchurch was a mechanic on the Atlantic and Great Western Railroad. He was living in Meadville, Pennsylvania at the time, and had become dissatisfied with another lodge that he was a member of. Now, originally, Upchurch's idea was to have an order which would unite the conflicting interests of capital and labor. But he soon became more interested in bettering the working conditions for the membership and establishing an insurance fund. This was probably due to the fact that while working on the railroad, Upchurch had witnessed the destitution and distress that an untimely death could cause the families of his fellow railroad workers. Now, the Ancient Order of United Workmen prospered, and by 1880, the order was the largest fraternal benefit society, and they'd have over 94,000 members across the United States. However, by 1895, many other groups had imitated the fraternal insurance concept. So this was an idea that caught on pretty quickly with other groups. Now, the Ancient Order of United Workmen ritual was secret. The square and compass and all-seeing eye were organizational symbols, right? And this was probably due to the fact that Upchurch was a Freemason, and he incorporated various traditions of Freemasonry, including local lodges, or as they called them, branches, as well as regalia and initiation ceremonies. So it tells you, right? It tells you that, we have these grips, as you've heard it said here before on Points of Light Radio, we have these grips and passwords, right, and secret symbolism in these orders to prevent people from, especially back in the earlier days of fraternalism, these were designed to kind of prevent people from sneaking in and copying the ritual work. But the members of these lodges were the biggest perpetrators of imitation, because they often left, or if they didn't leave, they often went off and formed their own fraternal orders. So, right? But the Ancient Order of United Workmen worked 4 degrees at their inception, but by 1871, the ritual work was revised and they only worked 3 degrees. Now, I've been unable to find out whether these degrees had names or what the names of them, or what the names might have been. It is not uncommon in a lot of these organizations, or many of them, to not have names like apprentice and journeyman and stuff for these degrees. So, right. But the Bible, as in Masonry, was also an important symbol within the Ancient Order of United Workmen. Now, the Ancient Order of United Workmen revised their ritual work a number of times, and every revision sought to take into account the changes adopted by society as a whole. So the ritual and the order's objectives would be in harmony. They aim to keep it in harmony with changes in society. Now, here's the thing. The religious qualities of the ritual were deleted from the revision in 1932. Now, why do you think that was? Okay, was secularism already creeping into society and into the lodges at that point? I don't know. Right? Now, as I've gone along here as well, you've seen you've seen me bring in some of the symbols and so on, and even a certificate. I mean, they were quite, they really did use a lot of symbolism, right? Now, the watchwords of the Ancient Order of United Workmen were charity, hope, and protection. Now, the order, because of its insurance, had always taken great pride in the latter watchword, so in protection, right? Because they were the pioneer in fraternal insurance, and they provided protection to their members, as well as to their widows and the orphans. And they did this in a novel and distinctive manner. Let's never forget. The Ancient Order of United Workmen discontinued its Supreme Lodge structure by 1929. A Congress was established in place of the Supreme Authority, and in 1952, the Ancient Order of United Workmen dissolved or merged with various state societies. Washington is rumored to be the only state where the Ancient Order of United Workmen continued to exist at that point. Right here you have some pictures of some of the their larger meetings and outside the halls. And I mean, they were quite a large and powerful group by the late 1800s, right? And as I've often say, I have only encapsulated here. I mean, this is another group. It's very hard to find a whole lot of information on them, but it sounds like, is it just me, or did this was this organization more concerned with fraternal benefits than with the conference of degrees? Now, there's not a whole lot wrong with that, shall we say, but could it have led to their downfall? I mean, you can't forget that you have the ritual work. It's wonderful to provide insurance and things like that, but at the end of the day, you can't forget about the ritual work. I mean, and I think this goes back to some of the organizations I've covered here that are around even today have taken out their ritual work. And the ritual work, no matter what anyone thinks, that's part of why people join these organizations, okay? And it has a lot more meaning than a lot of people think, right? It really does. Right? You need the grips, the passwords, you need the symbolism, right? It all has a lot more meaning than people think it does, right? I personally, that you want to hear my opinion, I think that is part of the reason for their downfall. Okay, you can't take those things away. It's part of why people join, right? Right, and it obviously it either has meaning or it doesn't. And I have a funny feeling that perhaps it didn't mean as much to the leadership as it should have, right? Right, but like I said, the Ancient Order of United Workmen, there's a lot of history that you've seen here, right? And they did a tremendous amount of good work, right? And as I've often asked you when we discuss these defunct societies, are they an organization? Do you think they're worth reviving? Right? Let me know how you feel. Check the oil in your lamps, brothers and sisters. Trim them if you need to. Let's move on. The next organization that I'm going to cover here in this particular segment of Points of Light Radio is the Knights of the Maccabees. Now, I know you're going to tell me that I've covered this organization in previous segments, and I have. On March 11th, I interviewed a gentleman named Aaron Rasmussen Bates, who was trying to revive the order, or a version of the order, in California. And that was a great segment of Points of Light Radio. And I did tell you I wanted, at the end of that particular segment, that I wanted to revisit them. And today we're revisiting them, only we are covering the history of the Knights of the Maccabees, right? And as I said in the last time we discussed the Knights of the Maccabees, I'm frankly amazed at the history of this organization. Right? The Knights of the Maccabees was founded in London, Ontario in 1878 by members of the Order of the Foresters. Now, there's a group that we will try to visit later on at some point with Points of Light Radio, because they were another organization that had that was quite interesting. But the Knights of the Maccabees based their name and ceremonies and rituals on the Maccabees. Now, this was a group of Jewish rebels that fought against the Seleucid empires, and their exploits are described in the book of the Maccabees. The motto of the Knights of the Maccabees was the Latin phrase, Astra, Castra, Numen, Lumen. And that means the stars, my camp, the deity, and my light. Okay, you Latin scholars, go ahead, start correcting me now. Okay. But I do love, as I've said before, I do love that motto: the stars, my camp, the deity, and my light. The Knights of the Maccabees was structured on a 3-tiered model. They had local subordinate camps, great camps, and the district level and the whole considered their supreme tent or Grand Lodge. I would think that's what they meant by that. By the 1970s, the local groups were called subordinate units. The head offices were traditionally in Detroit, but by 1965, they were moved to Southfield, Michigan. The local lodges were called tents, and the order worked a 3-degree structure. The first degree was the order of protection, the second degree was the order of friendship, and the third degree was the order of the degree of loyalty. Now, right, there was an elaborate ceremony for each degree. Now, I would have loved, this is one organization, like I said, if I was around at the time, I would probably try to join it because there again, I love some of this ritual work, and they were amazing. Like I said, an elaborate ceremony. Now, first of all, with the degree of protection, in this degree, the candidate was introduced to the demands of honor, courage, and obedience. The candidate learned the history of the Maccabee household and how it protected Judea from King Antiochus during the War of Independence. To prove themselves fit to join in the cause of humanity, the tyros, or initiants, had to undergo an ordeal. It'd be interesting to know what that ordeal took, how they made them undergo, what kind of an ordeal they had to undergo. It'd be interesting. Now, the degree of friendship. Okay, in the degree of friendship, the commander takes, or the master of the lodge, shall we say, takes the part of Matthias. The lieutenant commander or deputy master takes the part of Judas. The past commander takes the part of John, the son of Matthias. And the chaplain takes the part of Eleazar, or son of Matthias. The candidate received instruction in the nature of friendship. Now, that's interesting. Now, this is the big one, the degree of loyalty. And I imagine, like with most other organizations that practice any type of esoteric work, the third degree was probably what made you. And the third degree, or the degree of loyalty, the dramatic work in it, this particular degree, revolved around the following characters: Apelle, Matthias's 4 sons, Judas, soldiers, and the candidates, sentinel and knight, took the parts of Jewish peasants. In keeping with the Maccabee legend of the revolt at Modin, the patriarch Matthias remained steadfast to the Jewish religion when he was ordered to make sacrifice to Greek gods, and at great personal risk stops the apostate Jew from offering sacrifice to false gods. Now, the lesson derived from his example was that of genuine patriotism, and it instills the duty to uphold and defend the rights of liberty and conscience when they are threatened by irresponsible power in any form. Additionally, the candidate was reintroduced to the ghost of Eleazar and finally sees the end of the rebellion. That one, that sounds like, that really, right? You can't tell me that there weren't Masons and other organizations involved in that, because telling a story, right, is a big part of fraternal, of most of the esoteric fraternal work, right? And I would love to have been there for those degrees. I really would. I mean, if you do appreciate any of the more esoteric or ritual work in degrees, you would understand those sound like very beautiful degrees. They really do. Very dynamic as well, right? And they not only, good degrees not only give, in good degree work, you don't just get a degree, you get a lesson, and a lesson that can oftentimes it's a life lesson, not just something you're going to use in the lodge, right? You get a lesson for your life. And these really sound like they give you a lesson. And I like that, right? But that's just me. That's just me, right? But moving on, the Knights of Malta grew rapidly in Canada and several U.S. states. They reached 10,000 members by 1880. And by 1920, the Ladies Auxiliary, or the Ladies of the Maccabees, claimed more than 200,000 members. However, over the course of the 1900s, the Knights of Maccabees lost members and ceased to exist as a fraternal order. In recent years, there have been efforts to resurrect the order, as you saw in a previous segment of Points of Light Radio, right? And does it sound like this organization is worth reviving, right? I personally, I think it is. And like I said, maybe I'm a little too hung up on degrees, as you've heard me over the course of this particular segment, but it would be wonderful to bring this. And maybe it's part of the Canadian bias coming in there too, right? But yeah, I do think it is something that would be worth reviving, right? But reach out to me if you'd be interested in doing that. In the meantime, brothers and sisters, let's move on. There you have it, brothers and sisters. 2 defunct fraternal orders, right? And, you know, some history there, as well as maybe some lessons, right? Now, what lessons could we glean from today's presentation? First of all, what does it mean? What does it all mean? Now, you heard me say that when the Ancient Order of United Workmen seemed to reduce the importance, at least this was what I got from it, reduce the importance of their ritual work and their esoteric work, right? And really made the insurance side of the organization so prevalent that when societal changes, right, social welfare programs and so on began to play a much larger role in society, the insurance side of the Ancient Order of United Workmen, their members wouldn't have needed it anymore. But I really believe that if they placed larger emphasis on their ritual work, on their degree system, the members would have something to, shall we say, gravitate towards. Those secrets and those lessons that you get during the degree work are something, believe it or not, that binds the membership together almost as much as insurance does. Okay? Prime example, the things you remember about it, like I said, with the Order of the Maccabees, the tyros undergoing an ordeal. Now, come on, some of you Freemasons, some of the Orangemen, don't tell me I didn't see some knowing smirks when I talked about that ordeal. I would love to know what it entailed. I really would, and I'm very sure it was something that tyro or initiate, they remembered that ordeal afterwards. I guarantee you, based on some of the things I've been through, right? But yeah, I want your opinion though. What do you think? Not just are these organizations worth reviving? What does it mean? Okay, is it more important that these organizations do the great works, not just for their members, but also for society? Or do we still need, I do know that a number of organizations that are around still no longer have a degree system. They're taking their degrees out. Okay? What do you think? Should we hold to the degrees, ritual work, and so on, and secret work, or should we allow them to play a reduced importance or do away with them altogether? I want to hear from you, right? And I'll leave it there, Right, brothers and sisters. Before I go, though, I want to remind you that this podcast is available on both YouTube and Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing Points of Light Radio on YouTube. I also welcome your comments and input, especially in this case. I want to see them. Okay? You can follow Points of Light Radio on my Facebook page at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. My Twitter handle is at PO Light Radio. You can see the link to my Spotify channel as well as my Points of Light Radio store. Brothers and sisters, it's been a pleasure bringing you this work today. And until we meet again, you just step into the light.